Newcastle United have become embroiled in a transfer saga that looks set to be the main talking point of this summer's window. It involves Liverpool, Alexander Isak and Hugo Ekitike. But just which way will it go? The situation is this. Newcastle United have been looking to sign Eintracht Frankfurt's young French forward Hugo Ekitike and had placed a bid in the region of £70 million. This was then rebuffed by Eintracht Frankfurt, who said they wanted around the £80 million mark, perhaps even more than that. But of course, this opened the door for Liverpool, or at least that's what they thought, to sniff in around Alexander Isak and test the waters there. But the reports that are coming in suggest that Newcastle have firmly said no on this regard, and so Liverpool say now that they will try to go in for Ekitike from Frankfurt instead, and so it becomes something of a race to get Ekitike if Liverpool are not able to sign Alexander Isak from Newcastle, which would appear to be the current state of affairs. Let's go now to Joe Buck of the Shields Gazette. Joe, what are your thoughts on the rumours so far?
Yeah, I think the one thing for Isak for me is the Liverpool links are obviously genuine. They are looking for a striker. I've always had the worry that Isak, may go abroad. If you Real Madrid, your Barcelona, Bayern Munich, if one of them come in, for any player in world football, they're going to go. So I think Newcastle would probably prefer to sell them as well. I think it would hurt them a lot if they lined up against Isak, either next season or whatever in a couple of years' time. So knocking Liverpool out of the race for Isak might work, but I do think that you'll still, this time next year, have a lot of interest in Isak if he doesn't sign the contract. He also might sign the contract with release clauses and all that. It's all hypothetical at the minute, but yeah, it is 4D chess, and it's really interesting to see how clubs sort of work around that, and what Newcastle do something, how that impacts Liverpool, how that impacts whoever else. Yeah, it is one of the intricacies of the transfer market. And fortunately, we're talking about this, Newcastle haven't already signed a player, because we could be talking about this and Newcastle still haven't got any business done, and we're worried that they're not doing anything. So at least they've done something, and to see them being linked with players like this is really exciting.
It is indeed, yes. Of course, Newcastle already have Anthony Elanga through the door at St James's Park. He's training with the first team now in Austria on their pre-season training camp. Of course, it's perhaps worth noting from Newcastle's point of view that, yes, they've had PSR issues in the past, but the statement they could make by either just holding on to Alexander Isak or getting Ekitike as well as keeping Isak would be monumental. But what else do they need in this transfer window?
Yeah, I think for me the priority has to be in centre-half. I think last season Fabian Schär and Dan Burn did really well, not just to stay fit, but the level of performances they put in week after week. But I don't think you can rely on that next year. Obviously Sven Botman is coming back, and it's great to see him back. How long he can stay fit for, no one really knows. The player himself won't know, the staff won't know how many minutes he can play next year. So I think the centre-back has to be one of their main priorities. Whether that's someone who can, like, for example, Mark Gay, he can come in and start every game, or whether they go for someone abroad and think, right, we're going to have, like they might do with Ekitike, give them a year to bed in, and then they become the starter sort of next season. That's a decision they have to make. But yeah, the money they're going to spend, or they've already spent already, in potential Ekitike means that there is not limited funds, because that makes it sound scaremongering that they haven't got much money, but there is a limit of what they can spend because of PSR. Selling Longstaff and Willock does open up a few doors and unlocks a little bit. But again, if you sell Longstaff and Willock, for example, you're then going to have to probably buy another central midfielder, because you're going to go into the season with, really 4 options. And if you stick to the 4-3-3 formation, that's not very many other options if there's an injury in there. So it's a lot of moving parts. And I think the James Trafford one for me is one that it would be a shame for them not to get it done, because we know how much James Trafford wanted to join, how much they admire him. But when you've got Nick Pope there and Martin Dubravka showed end last season, you've got probably 2 very solid goalkeepers, and maybe you can knock that priority back till next year. But all that does, if you do wait till next year to sign a goalkeeper, every club in world football knows how desperate you are for a goalkeeper, and then their prices increase. So yeah, it's a real tough situation. I do have a lot of sympathy for anyone making transfer decisions, but particularly Newcastle, because yeah, it's not an easy decision. Anything you do now has a knock-on impact in 12 months' time. And yeah, it's going to be a very interesting summer